"Get this ragged father and daughter out of here right now," screamed CEO Brooke Carrington. Her cold voice echoed through the foggy glass lobby of Seattle's Grand Ether Grid. She glared at Terrence Cole's muddy boots and worn coat. She had no idea this 38-year-old black father was the supreme founder, with a 55% share. After 4 years away, he came back under a fake name to test his workers' honesty. When his daughter, Ava, cried from the insults, Terrence decided to take back his power. He wanted to protect her and save his family's legacy from Brooke's greedy plot. She was secretly selling the company to rival Helios Power for an $85 million bribe. His fight for justice was starting right in front of the traders. With a corrupt board backing Brooke, could he take back control in the boardroom before it was too late? However, to understand how this storm began, we need to go back 3 hours earlier. It was 6:15 in the morning. Fog rolled thick over the pine trees near Seattle. A small wooden house sat at 4218 Whispering Pines Road. Inside, Terrence Cole stood at the stove. He flipped 2 slices of toast, a little burn at the edges. He cracked an egg into the pan, soft in the middle. His daughter, Ava, sat on a tall wooden chair. She was 7 years old, with bright eyes and messy morning hair. In her arms, she held a small wooden music box. The box had belonged to her mother, Clara. Clara died in a car accident 4 years ago. The wood was scratched and worn from years of little hands holding it tight. Soft music played from the box. It filled the quiet kitchen like a gentle hug. Terrence poured warm milk into a small cup. He set it next to Ava's plate. "Eat up, sweet pea," he said softly. The kitchen smelled of burnt toast and warm butter. A soft hum came from the old refrigerator in the corner. Rain tapped gently against the window glass. Ava swung her feet under the table, humming along with the music box. Her socks did not match, one blue, one gray with tiny stars. "Daddy, why does the music always stop so soon?" she asked, watching the little brass gears slow down inside the box. "Because good things need winding up sometimes, sweet pea," Terrence answered softly. He reached over and turned the small golden key. The tune started again, bright and gentle. Ava's face lit up like sunshine breaking through clouds. Outside, a gentle wind pushed against the old wooden shutters, rattling them softly like a quiet heartbeat. Nobody in this town knew who Terrence really was. To his neighbors, he was just a quiet single dad. But under that worn jacket, he held a secret few could imagine. Terrence Cole owned 55% of EtherGrid. It was one of the biggest clean energy companies in Seattle. He built it with his late wife, Clara, years ago. After Clara died, Terrence walked away from it all. He handed the daily work to his board. He wanted to raise Ava far from cameras and noise. Ava looked up from her plate. "Daddy, I saw a paper at Mrs. Jenkins' house," she said. "It said our company might get sold." Terrence's hand froze over the frying pan. His chest tightened. He looked at a photo of Clara on the wall. He forced a small smile for Ava. "Don't worry about grown-up stuff, baby," he said. "Eat your eggs." But inside, worry churned like a storm. If someone sold EtherGrid, Clara's dream could vanish forever. At 7:45, Terrence stood at the sink washing dishes. His phone buzzed hard on the counter. He dried his hands and picked it up. A new email sat in his inbox. It came from a strange address, loyalist_9@protonmail.com. He opened it slowly. The message was from Marcus Vance, a 45-year-old engineer who had worked at EtherGrid for years. Marcus had been loyal to Clara since the company's earliest days. He still ran a control station deep inside the plant. The email was urgent. Marcus wrote that CEO Brooke Carrington was working with a rival company called Helios Power. They planned to sign a merger deal that very afternoon. Brooke had taken a secret bribe worth $85 million. She was pushing to sell Clara's prized invention, a solid battery called Clara V, for only 35% of its true worth. If the deal succeeded, Clara's dream of clean, free energy for poor families would die forever. Marcus had added one more line at the bottom of the email. "Sir, the meeting starts at noon. There isn't much time left. Terrence's hands went cold around the phone. Outside, rain hammered harder against the small kitchen window. The refrigerator hummed on, steady and calm, completely unaware of the storm building inside the small house. Terrence read the email twice. His jaw tightened. His fingers gripped the phone until his knuckles turned pale. He looked over at Ava, still humming along with her music box. Could he really drag her into this mess? He thought about his years in the military. He remembered how hard it was to control his temper under pressure. He opened a reply and began to type. "I have been gone too long," he wrote. "Let the board handle it." His finger hovered over the send button. Then something small happened. The music box wound down and went silent. Ava looked up, confused. "Daddy, Mommy used to say the company was our second home," she said quietly. "Are the people there in trouble?" Her innocent question hit him like cold water. Terrence stared at his half-written email. Shame rose in his throat. He deleted the message without sending it. His decision was made. He would go back, but not the way anyone expected. Terrence closed his eyes and took a slow breath, steadying the storm building quietly inside his chest. Terrence would not walk in as the founder. He wanted to see the truth with his own eyes first. He opened his old laptop and built a fake resume. He gave himself a new name, Thomas Reed. He applied for a low-level logistics job at his own company. His application number was TG 4219. At 9:15, Terrence bundled Ava into a raincoat. Rain fell hard and steady over the gray Seattle streets. They walked to the corner and boarded the number 41 bus. Ava pressed her nose to the foggy window. The bus smelled of wet umbrellas and old vinyl seats. Its engine rattled with every bump in the road. Ava traced little circles on the fogged glass with her finger. She drew a tiny heart and smiled at it. Terrence stared straight ahead, his mind racing through everything Marcus had written. His jaw stayed tight the whole ride. An older man across the aisle coughed twice, then went back to reading his newspaper. Rain streaked past the windows. The bus rattled through wet streets for almost an hour. Finally, it stopped near a tall glass tower. Ether Grid headquarters rose 52 stories into the fog. Its windows gleamed even under the gray morning sky. Terrence stepped off the bus with Ava's small hand in his. His boots were already caked with mud. His old jacket clung to him, damp from the rain. He looked nothing like the man who once ran this empire. They walked through the grand front doors. Warm air and soft music greeted them. Marble floors stretched out, shiny and cold. Employees in sharp suits rushed past. Some glanced at Terrence and wrinkled their noses. Others looked away completely. Near a hallway, an older woman pushed a cleaning cart. Her name tag read Martha Higgins. She was 62 years old. Her cart squeaked softly with every turn of its worn wheels. A faded photo of her grandchildren hung, taped to the handle. Martha had cleaned these floors for over 20 years. She noticed the tired father and his shivering daughter. She had seen many strangers pass through this lobby, but something about the little girl's tired eyes tugged at her heart. She walked over with a warm smile. She pulled a small cloth from her cart, embroidered with little yellow daisies. "Here, sweetheart," she said, wiping rain from Ava's cheek. "Let's get you dry." Ava managed a small, grateful smile. Martha then handed Terrence a paper cup. Steam rose from it, smelling of rich hot chocolate. "Break room's finest," she said. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping low. "Careful in here, friend," she warned. "They judge people by their clothes." "Kindness left this building the day old Mr. Cole stopped coming around," Martha added. Terrence's chest ached at her words. He nodded and thanked her, careful not to reveal his true face. Martha had no idea who stood before her. They reached the front desk. A young receptionist named Ashley sat behind polished black glass. She looked up, unimpressed. Her eyes scanned Terrence's muddy boots against the pristine white marble floor. Her lips curled into a slight frown. "Job applicants wait? Over there," she said, pointing to a dim corner near the emergency exit. It was a delivery bench. Terrence took Ava's hand and walked to the corner without complaint. He sat down on the cold plastic chair. Ashley barely looked up again after sending them away. Her phone buzzed, and she turned back to it quickly. This was the special world now. He once ruled this tower. Today, he was the lowest person in the room. Above them, a large clock ticked steadily on the marble wall. Its sound seemed to grow louder with each passing minute. The air smelled faintly of fresh coffee, an expensive perfume drifting from passing employees. None of them looked twice at the corner. A soft jazz song played from hidden speakers in the ceiling. It felt strange, cheerful music floating over such a cold room. The wait stretched on and on. Minutes crawled by like hours. Ava's stomach growled softly beside him. She didn't complain. She just squeezed her mother's music box tighter, staring at her worn shoes. Terrence reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small chocolate granola bar and broke it in half. "Here you go, baby girl," he whispered, placing half in her tiny hands. She nibbled it slowly, careful not to waste a crumb. A tall man in an expensive suit walked past, glancing down at their worn shoes with a small sneer. Terrence said nothing. He simply pulled Ava a little closer, shielding her from the cold stares around them. Ava rested her head against his arm, humming a quiet tune from her music box under her breath. The lobby clock read 11:35. Sharp heels clicked hard against the marble floor, echoing like gunshots. CEO Brooke Carrington stepped out of a golden elevator. 6 assistants trailed behind her, along with 2 men from Helios Power. She wore a cream-colored dress that fit like armor. Sunglasses hid her eyes, even though she stood indoors. Brooke's gaze swept the lobby and landed on Terrence and Ava. She stopped walking, her heels squeaking to a halt. Her lips twisted into disgust. She turned to her assistants, loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. "This building represents all of Seattle," she snapped. "Not some shelter for messy people who drag children to work. Get this ragged father and daughter out of here right now," she screamed again, her voice slicing through the quiet lobby. Every employee froze. Ashley, the receptionist, looked down, embarrassed. 2 security guards began walking toward Terrence. High above the lobby, a small black camera blinked red, recording every word without a sound. Brooke had installed that very camera system herself, proud of how well it watched over her employees. She never imagined it would one day capture her own cruelty for the whole world to see. Ava's lip trembled. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She clutched the music box against her chest like a shield. Terrence's blood ran hot beneath his skin. His jaw clenched tight. But his voice stayed calm and low. He knelt down in front of Ava. Gently, he wiped the tears from her face with his thumb. "Stay here with Miss Martha, sweet pea," he said softly. "Daddy has one small thing to take care of." "Mommy is waiting for us to win this," he whispered. Ava nodded, sniffling, and held Martha's hand tightly. The 2 security guards reached for Terrence's arms. But he stood tall, his shoulders wide and steady. He reached slowly into his worn jacket pocket. His fingers found a small black object, cold and heavy. It was a security key made of black titanium. Etched into its side were the letters TG 55, Founder. He held it up and scanned it across a hidden panel near the main pillar. A red alarm blinked once. Then the lights shifted to a deep blue glow. That color meant one thing: Supreme Founder access granted. The head of building security came sprinting from a side office. His eyes went wide when he saw the key. He stopped in front of Terrence and bowed low, almost touching his knees. "Stand down," he barked at the guards. Every guard froze mid-step. Whispers rippled through the lobby like wind through grass. Nobody understood what was happening. Brooke crossed her arms, annoyed but confused. "What is this nonsense?" she muttered, glancing at her watch impatiently. Terrence said nothing. He walked calmly toward the elevator marked VIP only. The doors slid open without a sound. He stepped inside alone and pressed the button for floor 52. The doors closed, sealing him away from the noise below. The elevator rose in complete silence. Only a faint hum of machinery filled the small metal box. Terrence watched the numbers climb. His heart pounded steady and hard, but his face stayed calm as stone. He thought of Clara's smile. He thought of the promise they made when they built this company together. They had signed the founding papers at a tiny diner table, sharing one slice of cherry pie between them. Clara used to say that kindness was the real currency of any company. Money, she believed, only followed close behind. Terrence closed his eyes for a moment, letting her voice echo softly in his memory one more time. The doors opened onto the top floor. Glass walls stretched around a long meeting room, showing all of foggy Seattle. Inside, Brooke Carrington's rival, the CEO of Helios Power, sat waiting with a thick stack of papers. A dark oak table stretched across the room. At its center, a pen rested beside the merger contract. The deal was ready. $85 million sat prepared in a hidden Swiss account, waiting for one signature. The meeting room door swung open. Terrence walked in, mud still clinging to his old brown boots. Brooke, who had rushed up moments later, saw him and screamed. "Who let this trash up here?" "Security." Terrence ignored her. He walked straight to the head of the table, to a chair that had stayed empty for 4 years. He placed the black titanium key gently on the polished wood. The room fell into stunned silence. The key blinked once, then connected to the wall screen. Files began loading, one after another, in bright blue light. A photo appeared. It showed Terrence Cole's real name, his founding papers, and his 55% ownership. Every face in the room turned pale. Brooke's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her hands trembled at her sides. The Helios Power executives shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Papers slipped from one man's shaking fingers. One executive cleared his throat nervously. "Sir, we had no idea about any of this," he said quickly. Another leaned back, trying to look calm, though sweat had already formed along his collar. Nobody dared speak louder. The room's air conditioner clicked on, blowing a soft, cold breeze across the long oak table. Terrence looked around the silent room. His eyes were calm, but they carried the weight of 4 long years. "My name is Terrence Cole," he said quietly. "I built this company with my wife. I never truly left it." He tapped the screen once more. New files appeared, showing bank transfers and secret emails, line after line. The numbers were exact. $85,042,117.34. That money had moved from Helios Power Straight into Brooke's private account through hidden companies overseas. More files loaded. They showed Brooke's messages ordering staff to undervalue the Clara V battery by exactly 35%. This move would have wiped out billions in value for small shareholders. It would have crushed Clara's community energy dream forever. The room stayed dead silent. Somewhere, an air conditioner hummed softly. A clock ticked on the far wall. Nobody moved. The Helios executives stared at their folded hands, afraid to even breathe too loudly. Brooke's face had lost all its color. Her lips pressed into a thin, shaking line. Then, suddenly, her fear turned into fury. She slammed both hands flat on the oak table. "You abandoned this company for 4 years," she shouted, her voice cracked with rage. "The board had every right to move on. This contract was signed by the majority," she yelled. "You cannot just walk in and destroy everything." 3 board members stood up quickly, their faces tight with panic. They had also taken bribes from Brooke. "We will sue you for illegal use of security devices." One man barked, pointing a shaking finger at Terrence. "You have no proof any of this is real." Brooke shouted, though her voice wavered on the last word. She reached for the merger contract, trying to slide it toward the Helios executives before anyone could react. "Sign it now," she hissed at them. "None of this matters once the deal is done." The Helios executives froze, unsure whether to trust a woman who was clearly unraveling in front of them. They tried to buy time, hoping the Helios team could hide the signed papers before anyone stopped them. Terrence stood completely still. He let their anger crash, over him like waves against solid rock. He remembered Ava's tears in the lobby. He remembered Martha's warning about kindness disappearing from this building. Slowly, he placed his hand back on the titanium key. His voice stayed low, steady, and unshaken. "I'm activating the Founder's Emergency Charter," he said clearly. Section 47, written into our company's original charter. This rule lets any shareholder holding over 50% remove the entire board immediately, he explained calmly. It applies whenever there is proof of serious harm done against this company, Terrence added, his eyes never blinking. Brooke's mouth fell open. Her manicured hands gripped the edge of the table, so hard her knuckles turned white. At that exact moment, the meeting room doors burst open again. This time, federal agents walked in. Officers from a Seattle police department followed close behind them. Their badges gleamed under the office lights. Terrence had already sent every piece of evidence to the authorities early that morning, right after reading Marcus's email. Two agents moved quickly toward Brooke. Cold metal handcuffs clicked shut around her wrists in one swift motion. She stared at Terrence, her eyes wide, with shock and fear. Her voice came out broken and shaking. "Please," she whispered, "I can explain everything. Just give me a chance." Terrence did not even glance her way. The corrupt board members were let out one by one, their faces pale, their heads hanging low. One agent carried a small tablet, showing footage pulled straight from Brooke's own lobby camera system. Brooke's eyes widened when she saw her own outburst playing back on the small, glowing screen. The very system she trusted to control others had become the clearest proof of her downfall. Brooke was pulled toward the door, still shouting protests that nobody in the room bothered to hear anymore. The Helios Power executives quietly gathered their papers, avoiding eye contact with anyone as they slipped out. Silence returned to the room, thick and heavy. Only the faint hum of the city rose from far below. Terrence exhaled slowly. His shoulders relaxed for the first time in hours. The weight on his chest finally eased. He walked back toward the elevator, leaving the empty boardroom behind him. The doors slid shut without a sound. Down in the lobby, Martha sat with Ava, softly humming along, with a wooden music box in her lap. Ava looked up the moment the elevator doors opened. Relief washed over her small, tear-streaked face. Terrence walked out, calm and steady. He knelt down and scooped Ava into his arms, holding her close. "Is it over, Daddy?" she asked, her voice still shaky. Terrence pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "It's over, sweet pea," he said gently. "We won." Ava wrapped her small arms tightly around his neck. Word spread through the building within minutes. Employees whispered in shocked clusters near the elevators and hallways. Ashley, the receptionist, stood frozen behind her desk, her earlier coldness replaced by wide, disbelieving eyes. A group of young interns huddled near the elevator bank, whispering questions none of them could answer. Somewhere upstairs, phones began ringing nonstop as news of the arrest spread through every department. The true founder had returned. The tyrant who ruled through fear and greed was gone for good. Terrence carried Ava to a soft leather chair near the front windows and set her down gently. He turned to Martha, who stood nearby, still stunned by everything she had just witnessed unfold. "Thank you for your kindness today," Terrence said warmly. "You reminded me why this company was ever built." He then called Marcus Vance down from the control station. Marcus arrived minutes later, breathless and hopeful. "You've been loyal to this company for years," Terrence told him. "I am naming you interim operations director." Marcus's eyes filled with tears of disbelief. He shook Terrence's hand firmly, unable to find the right words. "Sir, I only sent that email because I couldn't stay quiet any longer," Marcus said, his voice cracking slightly. "Your loyalty saved this company." "Marcus," Terrence replied, "Clara always said you were the most honest man on this floor." Marcus wiped his eyes with his sleeve, smiling despite the tears. 20 years of hard work had finally been seen. Terrence turned to the crowd gathering in the lobby. His voice rang out clear and full of purpose. "Starting today, Every worker in this building will receive a 25% raise, he announced. Gasps rippled through the crowd. This includes every cleaner, every guard, and every quiet worker who kept this place running, he added firmly. Martha covered her mouth with both hands, tears slipping down her cheeks. Applause broke out across the lobby. A young security guard near the door pumped his fist quietly, grinning from ear to ear. Even the busy interns by the elevators stopped whispering and joined in the growing applause. Someone in the back began clapping in a steady rhythm, and soon the whole lobby joined together. Terrence raised a hand for quiet. "This company will honor my wife's dream," he said. "Kindness comes first, always. No more judging people by their clothes," he continued. "No more cruelty disguised as company policy or procedure." The crowd cheered louder this time. Even the young receptionist, Ashley, wiped tears from her cheeks, smiling softly. Terrence walked back to Ava and lifted her gently onto his hip. She held her mother's music box tightly. "Open it, baby girl," he whispered. Ava twisted the small golden key on the side of the box. Soft, sweet music began to play, drifting through the glass lobby of the 52-story tower. Outside, the thick morning fog began to lift. Warm sunlight broke through, spilling across the wet Seattle streets. Golden light poured through the tall glass windows, wrapping around Terrence and Ava like a gentle blanket. Employees stood quietly, listening to the small, delicate melody fill the enormous space around them. Terrence looked down at his daughter, her cheek resting against his shoulder, her eyes finally calm and bright. He thought of Clara and how proud she would be of this moment. Her dream had survived after all. The company that once forgot its people had finally remembered them. Kindness had returned to Ethergrid. Martha walked over slowly, wiping her hands on her apron. She smiled at Ava, still humming along with the music. "That's a beautiful tune, sweetheart," Martha said softly. Ava looked up and smiled through the last of her tears. "It was my mommy's," Ava said proudly. "Daddy says she still watches over us." Martha's eyes glistened with warmth. Marcus stood nearby, watching the scene with quiet pride. Years of loyalty had finally been recognized in one single morning. Outside the tall windows, cars rolled by on wet streets, their headlights glowing softly through the fading mist. Somewhere far above, the empty boardroom sat silent now, its long oak table catching the first rays of sunlight. Terrence held Ava close as the music played on, soft and steady, filling every corner of the quiet lobby. For years of silence had ended not with anger, but with truth, patience, and quiet, unshakable love. Ava rested her head against her father's shoulder, her small fingers still wrapped around the wooden music box. Terrence pressed a kiss to her hair and looked out at the brightening sky above the glass towers of Seattle. He thought about tomorrow and the many mornings ahead, filled with pancakes, laughter, and no more secrets to hide. The soft chime of the music box slowed, then stopped, its little song finished for now. Ava looked up at her father, her cheeks finally dry, her small smile brighter than the morning sun. "Can we wind it up again, Daddy?" she asked. Terrence chuckled softly and nodded, reaching for the tiny golden key. "As many times as you want, sweet pea," he said. Some songs deserve to be heard again and again. Down below, the city of Seattle stretched wide, its wet streets shining under the returning sun. Somewhere out there, life continued as always, unaware of the quiet victory won inside one glass tower. But for Terrence and Ava, everything had changed. The fear was gone. The truth stood tall. And as the fog cleared fully over Seattle, father and daughter stood together, finally safe, finally home.